Chapter 4, Lesson 4, Add and Subtract Unlike Fractions. You will be able to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Make the denominators the same by using the least common denominator. Add or subtract the numerators and keep the denominator the same. Reduce if possible. So all we need to do here, our first step anyway, is to find common denominators. You can do that by finding the least common multiple of the denominators. So with some of these, hopefully you can figure out the least common multiple in your head, but if not, I will show you on a couple examples how to figure out the least common denominator. So if I have the denominators 2 and 4, I'm going to write out some multiples. 2, 4, 6, 8, and then multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16. The smallest multiple they have in common is 4. Therefore, 4 is the least common multiple. I need to make both denominators 4. Well, this one is already 4, so I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator by 1, so it remains the same, and I get 1/4. With the 1/2, to make the 2 a 4, I need to multiply numerator and denominator by 2, and I would get 2/4. Bring down the plus sign. They're both positive, so I can simply add. 2/4 plus 1/4 is 3/4, and 3/4 is reduced. Letter B. Another method to find the least common denominator is to make your factor trees. So 6 is 2 and 3, and 3 is just 3. 3 is in common, 2 is left over, my LCD is 6. So this one I don't have to change since it's already 6. I'm really multiplying by 1, 1/6 plus. To make the 3 a 6, I need to multiply by 2. So this would be 4/6. They are both positive. Add them up, and we get 5/6, which is reduced. Letter C, the least common denominator is 8, because both 4 and 8 are factors of 8. So 4 I have to multiply by 2 to get 8, and 8 I only have to multiply by 1. So I would get 2/8 plus 3/8, which equals 5/8. Now let's talk about the negatives. Our denominators 3 and 4 share a least common multiple of 12. So I would have to multiply this first fraction by 4, numerator, denominator, and the second fraction by 3, numerator and denominator. My first fraction would be negative 4/12. Bring down the plus sign. My second fraction would be negative 3/12. Well, our denominators remain the same, and we have negative 4 plus negative 3, which is negative 7. So negative 7/12. And again, you can pull out the negative in front if you prefer. Letter E, our least common denominator between 10 and 2 is 10. So the 2 I have to multiply by 5 to get to 10. And this fraction I just have to multiply by 1. I have 9/10 plus a negative 5/10. Our denominator remains the same. And 9 plus negative 5 is positive 4. And this fraction I can reduce by dividing by 2 and getting 2/5. Letter F. We have to use the order of operations first, and the order of operations tells us to do what's inside the parentheses first. However, I still need a common denominator, and this time for all 3 fractions. Luckily, I only have 5 and 7 to deal with. That least common denominator is 35. I multiply the fractions with 5 as a denominator. I multiply those by 7. And the denominator of 7, I multiply numerator and denominator by 5. So I get 14 35ths plus parentheses 20 35ths plus 21 35ths. Doing what's in the parentheses first, I get 41 over 35. Bring down the 14 35ths and the plus sign. And here, it looks like I get 55 over 35, and we need to reduce. I definitely can divide numerator and denominator by 5, and we would get 11 over 7, which would be 1 4/7. Letter G. I have a 4 and a 9 in the denominator. The least common multiple of 4 and 9 would be, well, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36. It looks like 36. I would multiply the denominators of 4 by 9 to get 36. And the denominator of 9, I would multiply by 4. We would get negative 27 over 36 plus 20 over 36 in parentheses plus 63 over 36. We need to take care of what's in the parentheses first. Negative 27 plus 20 is negative 7. Denominator remains the same. Bring down the 63 over 36. Then I have negative 7 plus 63. Well, negative 7 plus 63 is positive 56. Keep the denominator of 36. Here I would divide by, I believe 4 goes into it. The denominator would be 9. And let's figure out 4 into 56 here. Looks like 14 times. And this would equal 1 5/9. Letter H, we have 10 and 8. Our least common denominator is 40. So I need to multiply numerator and denominator here by 4. And the numerator and denominator here by 5. So we get negative 12 over 40 plus 25 over 40 in parentheses plus 23 times 4. We'll have to do I on a separate page here. 23 times 4, which is 92. We have to do what's inside the parentheses first. Negative 25 40ths plus 20, or negative 12 40ths plus 25 40ths is positive 13 40ths. Bring down the plus 92 40ths. 92 and 13 make 105. So this would be 105 over 40. I can divide definitely by 5. I don't know if I can divide by anything else yet. I would get 21 over 8. And it would go in 2 times, so this would be 2 and 5/8. Letter I. I'm actually going to erase some of this work over here so I have space to do I. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. Now that I have addition, let's get those common denominators. I can multiply, 6 is our least common denominator. I'll multiply this fraction by 2 and this fraction by 3. We get negative 4 over 6 plus negative 3 over 6. Negative 4 and negative 3 make negative 7. And this would be negative 1 and 1/6. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. Our LCD is 8, so I need to multiply this second fraction by 2, and this first fraction can remain the same. So 5 over 8 plus negative 2 over 8, which would equal 3 over 8, which is reduced. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. 12 is our least common denominator here, so I need to multiply this fraction by 3 and this fraction by 4. We get 9 over 12 plus negative 4 over 12, which equals 5 over 12, and that is reduced. Letter L. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. 10 is our LCD, so we'll multiply this fraction by 2 and this fraction by 5. We get 5/10 plus 4/10, which equals 9/10, and that is reduced. Complete the following problems, reduce if possible. Cassandra cuts 5/16 inch off the top of a photo and 3/8 inch off the bottom. How much shorter is the total height of the photo? So she cut off 5/16 and she cut off 3/8. So we are actually adding those together to see the total amount she cut off. We need an LCD, which in this case would be 16. So we will multiply this fraction by 2 to get 16. And this fraction, we don't need to change, so we multiply by 1. And we get 5/16 plus 6/16, which equals 11/16. And our unit is inches. Really inch, because it's less than 1. So 11/16 inch. Mrs. Escalante was riding a bicycle on a bike path. After riding 2/3 of a mile, she discovered that she still needed to travel 3/4 of a mile to reach the end of the path. How long is the bike path? Well, what she traveled versus what she still needs to travel, if we add those together, that would make our total distance on the bike path. Our least common denominator between 3 and 4 is 12. So multiply the first fraction by 4 and the second fraction by 3. And we would get 8 over 12 plus 9 over 12, which equals 17 over 12. And as a mixed number would be 1 and 5/12 miles. Michaela bought 1/4 pound of ham and 5/8 pound of turkey. How much more turkey did she buy? So it's asking for how much more. So we actually are doing a subtraction problem. 5/8 minus 1/4. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. And now our common denominators. Our least common denominator is 8, so we're going to multiply the second fraction by 2 And the first fraction remains the same, so we multiply it by 1. We get 5/8 plus negative 2/8, which equals 3/8, and our unit is pound. So 3/8 pound.